Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sharpening Report. I am your host, Josh Peck. For some time now, ideas about possible occult connections with CERN have been presented on various internet blogs and opinion columns. So today, we're going to be examining some of these claims to see if any legitimate connections can be made. What is presented here is just a small percentage of the total amount of research, evidence, that kind of stuff that's available everywhere. And it's important to view any claims like this with an open mind, but we should not accept these claims blindly, and we shouldn't dismiss them without reviewing all the evidence. And the reason that I'm doing this today is there's a lot of good information and a lot of false information around CERN. So today I want to get more into the history, the mythology, just kind of the weird symbolism, and even a little bit of the prophecy. I want to do that more today rather than looking at how the LHC actually works, what it's actually doing. If you would like an episode on that, let me know in the comments, and I can definitely do that. So to start, let's look at CERN in ancient times. So a large portion of CERN is found in a commune in eastern France called Saint-Genès-Pauli. And this commune was actually identified as two separate towns. Before it was given the name Saint-Genès-Pauli in 1887, the two towns were named Saint-Genès and Pauli. Interestingly enough, Pauli used to be a small Roman city by the name of Apolliacum. Before dissecting the evidence surrounding the ancient seat of Apolliacum, we should first delve into the history of St. Genus's namesake. So the origin of the name of the town of St. Genus can be traced back to an individual who is surrounded by legends and mystery. It's generally believed the name St. Genus came from St. Genest, also known as Genesius of Rome, who was a legendary Christian martyr. So the legend of Genesius of Rome states that Genesius, prior to his conversion, was once the leader of a theatrical troupe in Rome, and in his plays he would ridicule Christianity, especially certain rites. In one such performance, which was to be in front of an audience containing the Emperor Diocletian, Genesius was going to ridicule the sacrament of baptism. The play began, and Genesius took on his role of a person stricken ill. Two other actors asked him what was wrong, and Genesius said he felt he had a weight on him that he wanted removed. Next, two different actors, dressed as a priest and an exorcist, entered. When the actors asked what he wanted to alleviate his sickness, Genesius expressed that he wanted to be baptized. And it was shortly after this point in the play when things became very real for Genesius. He broke the fantasy of the play, claiming to see actual angels, and asked to be baptized on stage for real. This completely outraged Diocletian, and Genesius persisted in his newfound faith, even to the point of torture and death by beheading. Now, today, Genesius is regarded as the patron saint of actors, lawyers, barristers, clowns, comedians, converts, dancers, epileptics, musicians, printers, stenographers, and torture victims. And his, of course, this is all Catholicism, but his feast day is August 25th. Now, coincidentally, August 25th is the same day Paris was liberated by the Allies in 1944. Though recognized as a legend, there is a kernel of truth behind the story of Genesius in Rome. The very real Genesius of Arles is often combined with the legend of Genesius of Rome. So Genesius of Arles was a notary who was martyred by Maximanus in the year AD 303. He's the patron saint of notaries and secretaries, and his feast day is also August 25th. So it's said while he was performing his secretarial duties that a decree of persecution against Christians was read out loud, Hearing this and becoming outraged, Genesius threw his tablets down to the magistrate's feet and fled. He was then captured and executed. Now, interestingly enough, the account of this mysterious individual does not end here. It's believed by scholars that Genesius of Arles is the same as the Spanish Saint Gines de la Llaga. Now, if true, this actually adds a lot more depth to the story because there's a really interesting legend behind this individual. The legend states that after Genesius of Arles was beheaded, he was buried in Arles, but angels transported his head to Cartagena. Now, another variation states that when Gines was decapitated in France, he picked up his own head and threw it into the sea, which carried it to Murcia. Now, these are thought as accounts to explain why stories of the same saint and the same cult are found in two different places. Also, the feast day of Saint Gines de la Llaga is also August 25th. The cult of Saint Gines is thought to originate from the cults of the Islamic jinn, surprisingly enough, the Roman genius, or even with an ancient Carthaginian site dedicated to Baal. In Islamic belief, the jinn are beings made of smokeless fire that come from Jinnistan, another universe beyond our own. And from a Christian perspective, these jinn might be viewed as fallen seraphim and extra-dimensional in nature. Now, the genius in Roman mythology is the individual instance of a general divine nature that is present in every individual person, place, or thing. And lastly, the false god Baal-Hamon was the supreme god of the Carthaginians. Baal-Hamon was generally identified with the Greek god Kronos, the Roman god Saturn, and the Semitic god Dagon. Now, interestingly enough, Baal and Dagon are both mentioned in the Bible frequently. Now, the repetition of August 25th between the three representations of this mysterious individual certainly causes one to take note. The only common theme with this particular date seems to be, strangely enough, space exploration. So on this date, August 25th in 1981, the Voyager 2 spacecraft made its closest approach to Saturn. Interestingly enough, we just mentioned Saturn. On August 25th, 1989, the Voyager 2 spacecraft made its closest approach to Neptune. And on August 25th, 2012, the Voyager 1 officially left our solar system and became the first man-made object to enter interstellar space. So this apparent connection between the heavens and this mysterious individual of many names may have more parallels when we look into the namesake of the second town, Poeli. Now remember, this is the mythology and the legends surrounding the area that CERN decided to build the LHC on. That's why we're talking about this. So Poeli was a small Roman city that likely took its name from the Latin Apolliacum that we mentioned before. So it's believed that it was given that name out of dedication to the god Apollon or Apollyon or Apollo. Apollon can be identified with the biblical Apollyon / Abaddon in the New Testament, the Greek god Apollo, and even, surprisingly enough, Nimrod of the Old Testament, who is sometimes known as the man of many names. Just like Genesius, who could be called the saint of many names, Nimrod, who was also reported as being decapitated in the extra-biblical book of Jasher, connects here as well. So the connections between Nimrod, Apollo, and Abaddon / Apollyon, of course, they've been thoroughly researched, but there are a few more interesting details that are not commonly discussed. So Apollo was worshipped by the Romans as well as the Greeks. In Mauvaire's Indre, a commune in central France, Apollo was equated with the Celtic god oh my gosh, what a hard name to say. Atapomaras. Okay. So these two characters were combined to create Apollo Atapomaras, which can be translated as great horseman or possessing a great horse. Kind of sounds like something out of Revelation. In the Celtic belief, horses were closely related to the sun. And the interesting thing to note is the connection between this idea of Apollo being associated with horses in France, where part of the LHC and CERN resides, with what the book of Revelation states about Abaddon. It says, and the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. So, given these descriptions, and this is something that people have asked, is it possible that CERN will have something to do with the opening of the bottomless pit described in Revelation 9? Now, this is a possibility many researchers have looked into recently, myself included. And if you want more information on that, if you want me to delve into that, let me know in the comments below. We got lots that we got to get to today, so there wasn't time to fit it in because that's a teaching all its own. But if you would like that, let me know, and I'd be happy to continue on that line of thought in another video. But that's a possibility that a lot of people have looked into. And with that prophecy in mind, we can look into other mythologies and see more potential connections to CERN. By the way, if you guys aren't familiar, I probably should have said this in the beginning. Most people know what CERN is. CERN is just the governing body that decides what to do with the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider, which is the biggest, most powerful machine that human beings have ever created. It's a big particle collider. Some people are worried it's going to open a black hole or a portal. But again, we're just looking at the history of this. And if you want more on that stuff, let me know. I'll be happy to do another video continuing on this. But this here is just mostly about the weird history, the symbolism, CERN and mythology that we're going to look at in just a second, because that name does pop up, what that statue is all about. That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. Its logo, the CERN logo, is that really a 666? We're going to look at that kind of stuff in this video. And again, if you want another one that gets more into the Revelation stuff or how the LHC works, this could easily be like 3 videos. So let's talk about CERN in mythology. Now, like I just mentioned, that word CERN can be found in ancient mythology. So, for example, in Dorset, England, there's a legend of the Cerne or CERN Abbas giant, which is often associated with fertility. In Celtic mythology, the god Cernunnos is depicted as having antlers or horns. And he is also shown with torques around, like these rings, like around his necks and hanging from his antlers. Cernunnos is sometimes recognized as the god of nature or fertility, and torques are large metal neck rings that were once associated with nobility and high social status. The word torque comes from the Latin torque or torque, T-O-R-Q-U-E, like how we would use the word torque, meaning to twist. It comes from this word because of the twisted shape that many of those rings had. And because of the association with various creatures, Cernunnos is sometimes described by scholars as the Lord of the Animals or Lord of the Wild Things. Now, in biblical terminology, this could be understood as Lord of the Beasts. And Cernunnos is sometimes recognized as being associated with sailors, commerce, and material wealth. Some may recognize this as a possible connection with Revelation 18, where the great city of Babylon, and there's a bunch of commerce and sailors and stuff. But also Lord of the Animals in Revelation 6, there's a strange prophecy about how people, like a fourth of the world, are going to be killed not only by, war, famine, disease, but also by the beasts of the earth. So there's a possible connection to Cernunnos there, because that's a strange prophecy. And then obviously with Revelation 18. Now, Cernunnos has been associated with Baphomet, an important deity in occultism. Baphomet is also synonymous with the symbol of the goat pentagram, known as the sigil of Baphomet, which is a 5-sided star in the shape of a goat head, which many of you have probably seen before. Now, from Wikipedia, this is what Wikipedia says about it. Quote, the original goat pentagram first appeared in the book La Clef de la Magie Noire by French occultist Stanislas de Guaty. in 1897. So it says the symbol would later become synonymous with Baphomet and is commonly referred to as the Sabbatic goat. Samael is a figure in Talmudic lore, and Lilith, a female demon in Jewish mythology. The Hebrew letters at the 5 points of the pentagram spell out Leviathan, a mythic creature in Jewish lore. This symbol was later adapted by the Church of Satan in 1969 and officially named the Sigil of Baphomet. End quote. Now, the myth of Cernunnos is explained in further and more provocative detail in Italian witchcraft. Here, Cernunnos is known only as CERN, spelled exactly the same way, CERN, and has a brother named Lupus. CERN is seen as the stag god, while Lupus is seen as the wolf god. It's said that on the day of the spring equinox, Lupus was hit by a bolt of lightning shaped like an arrow while hunting a deer. Lupus then died, and on the next morning rose from the underworld as the sun. CERN learned of his brother's death and became the god of this world. That's actually what it says. And as we know, that title is attributed to Satan in the Bible. The only thing left behind from the death of Lupus was his wolf skin. Now, this is interesting, which was found in the forest by another hunter. To some of you, some of this might be starting to sound familiar. It turns out that the pelt had the magical power to transform men into wolves. The first man to wear this wolf pelt became a priest of Lupercus and founded the Society of the Luperci. So we find, some of you may already know where I'm going with this, but for those who don't, we actually find a really interesting parallel to this story in the book of Jasher concerning Nimrod. And I'm just going to read it. And Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah, took a wife in those days in his old age, and she bare a son, and they called his name Nimrod, saying, at the time of the sons of men again began to rebel and transgress against God, and the child grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the son of his old age. And the garments of skin, which God made for Adam and his wife, when they were out of the garden, were given to Cush. And I'm just going to break in right now. Now, remember, in the Bible, it does say that. It does say that God created clothes for Adam and Eve, and apparently must have slaughtered an animal to do that. So this is saying, Jasher's saying that was actually kept and it was passed down. So again, I'm going to just read that again. And the garments of skin, which, and Jasher's going to say that they had, these garments had some kind of abilities. The Bible doesn't necessarily say that. Doesn't not say that either, but just, you know, of course, we always want to go with the Bible. But this is an interesting story. So, again, it says, and the garments of skin which God made for Adam and his wife when they were out of the garden were given to Cush. For after the death of Adam and his wife, the garments were given to Enoch, the son of Jared. And when Enoch was taken up to God, he gave them to Methuselah, his son. And at the death of Methuselah, Noah took them and brought them to the ark, and they were with him until he went out of the ark. And in their going out, Ham stole the garments from Noah, his father, and he took them and hid them from his brothers. And when Ham begat his firstborn Cush, he gave him the garments in secret, and they were with Cush many days. And Cush also concealed them from his sons and brothers. And when Cush had begotten Nimrod, he gave him those garments through his love for him. And Nimrod grew up, and when he was 20 years old, he put on those garments. And Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments, and God gave him might and strength. And he was a mighty hunter in the earth, yea, he was a mighty hunter in the field. And he hunted the animals, and he built altars, and he offered upon them the animals before the Lord. That's Jasher 7:23-30. I should mention, too, if you are a member of Daily Renegade, if you're viewing this on the Daily Renegade website where you get the full video, I have a PDF attachment that you can download, and it's all the show notes to this episode. So all of the Bible references, the extra biblical references, all of the information is in that PDF. I make that available only to Daily Renegade members. So if you're not a member, head on over to dailyrenegade.com right now. You'll get to see this entire video in full, and you'll also get the show notes. Okay, so later on in Jasher, we get the rest of the story. And it continues. And Nimrod dwelt in Shinar, and he reigned securely, and he fought with his enemies, and he subdued them, and he prospered in all his battles. And all nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings, and he became their lord and king, and they all dwelt with him in the city at Shinar. And Nimrod reigned in the earth over all the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel. And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union, but Nimrod did not go in the ways of the Lord, and he was more wicked than all the men that were before him from the days of the flood until those days. And that's Jasher 7:44 through 46. So we can see how Nimrod could be identified with CERN as the god of this world at the time. In fact, Satan himself could be identified with CERN, according again to 2 Corinthians 4, chapter 4, verse 4. Nimrod may also be identified with the first person who put on Lupus's pelts and became the priest of Lupercus. There's many ways to make connections and assign biblical identities to various myths surrounding CERN. That doesn't mean that those myths are correct. Those are twisted versions of the truth. But if the truth is all this stuff with Nimrod, then we can see how throughout time and demonic influence, those stories got twisted into all this mythology around Lupercus and all that stuff. It's the same kind of story, just with some satanic embellishments. Now, next we're going to talk about the strange statue in front of the CERN headquarters and what its symbolism means. But before we do, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. Excuse me. Check this out. Concerning the economically unstable times that we live in, it is a great idea to convert some of your savings into real money. Now, there is a big difference between real money and what we call money, which is actually just currency. So our dollar is currency, which fluctuates. Real money, on the other hand, like silver, for example, is a store of value over time. The best way to think of it is like this. If you had saved $1,000 in cash back in the late 60s, the late 1960s, that $1,000 would still be $1,000 technically, but it would buy you significantly less today due to inflation. Now, if you had saved that same $1,000 in silver back in the 1960s, today it would be worth around $28,000. So one of the best ways to protect your purchasing power is in real money, more specifically, silver. You can buy and have the metal shipped discreetly to your door, and what most people don't know is that you can actually convert your IRA or even a 401k into physical silver rather than having all of your life savings tied up in the paper fiat system, which is subject to hyperinflation. Go to dailyrenegade.com and click on the Cornerstone Assets Metals banner. This is the only company that I personally trust with this kind of thing. Click on that and sign up to get your free silver report today. One of the financial experts will speak with you to find out the best way to protect your savings going forward in these uncertain times. Okay, thank you for watching that. Please consider it. Please take that seriously. Links are in the description below. The economy's terrible. Very good idea to get protect your assets, protect your money, protect your retirement, your 401k. I only trust Cornerstone. It's the only one that I know. There's so many scammers out there. Make sure to check them out. All of the information is in the description below. Okay, so let's continue. Let's talk about this statue of destruction. So since its unveiling in 2004, so this has been up for about 20 years now, CERN's statue of the dancing Shiva has caused quite a bit of controversy among Christians, especially in recent years. This is a large statue that they have right out in front of the CERN headquarters, and it's this big Indian epic, this Shiva dance thing. And we're going to look into that. So many look at the mythology of Shiva and the Nataraja dance and question the true motives of CERN. Is this statue meant merely as a piece of art? Or, as some claim, is this a foretelling of future destruction, a prophecy of doom? Well, the mythology behind the statue is very dramatic. Shiva is one of the main deities of Hinduism. He's part of the Trimurti, which is the Hindu trinity. Shiva is known as the Destroyer, which many of you, there's connections to Apollo there, or the Transformer within this trinity. One depiction of Shiva is known as the Nataraja, or Nataraya, meaning Lord of the Dance. This is the depiction that embodies the statue at CERN. That is what this statue is showing. The Nataraja depiction shows Shiva as the cosmic dancer who performs a divine dance to destroy a weary universe. Shiva does this in order to make preparations for the god Brahma to start the creation process. The statue shows Shiva in the middle of a circle of flames with his left leg raised and balancing over the demonic dwarf Apasmara, who represents ignorance. Apasmara in Hindu mythology is a demon that cannot be killed. Hinduism teaches a balance between ignorance and knowledge, and to kill Apasmara would be to throw off the balance. This would mean that knowledge would be attained without effort or hard work, thereby rendering it meaningless. So since Apasmara cannot be killed, Shiva uses his right foot to crush and subdue Apasmara during the Nataraja dance. And it's believed that Shiva remains in the Nataraja form to forever subdue Apasmara. Excuse me. So the statue of Shiva at CERN contains an inscription of a quote by physicist Fritjof Capra, which states, quote, "Hundreds of years ago, Indian artists created visual images of dancing Shivas in a beautiful series of bronzes. In our time, physicists have used the most advanced technology to portray the patterns of the cosmic dance. The metaphor of the cosmic dance thus unifies ancient mythology, religious art, and modern physics." End quote. Now, shockingly, there is more to be read on the statue that claims Shiva as the most superior god of all religions. Just utter blasphemy, right? So from the website of Fritjof Capra, quote, "A special plaque next to the Shiva statue at CERN explains the significance of the metaphor of Shiva's cosmic dance with several quotations from the Tao of Physics. Here is the text of the plaque. Ananda K. Kumaraswamy, seeing beyond the unsurpassed rhythm, beauty, power, and grace of the Nataraja, once wrote of it, it is the clearest image of the activity of God which any art or religion can boast of." End quote. Now, that's obviously outright blasphemy. But more recently, Fritjof Capra explained that quote, "Modern physics has shown that the rhythm of creation and destruction is not only manifest in the turn of the seasons and in the birth and death of all living creatures, but is also the very essence of inorganic matter, and that for the modern physicists, then Shiva's dance is the dance of subatomic matter," end quote. And it is indeed as Capra concluded, quote, "Hundreds of years ago, Indian artists created visual images of dancing Shivas in a beautiful series of bronzes. In our time, physicists have the most advanced technology to portray the patterns of the cosmic dance. The metaphor of the cosmic dance thus unifies ancient mythology, religious art, and modern physics." So, end quote. So, given the mythology behind the statue and the type of scientific pioneering that CERN represents, it's caused many to wonder if there's a deeper meaning here. Some have even gone as far as to say that Apasmara represents the church or the true God, because again, this is a false religion. This is an inverse. This is a twisting, a satanic twisting of something real. And when you look at all these false religions, they are blasphemous towards the Christian God. So some have gone as far as to say that Apasmara represents the church or the true God, and then Shiva represents Satan. The circle of flame represents a spiritual portal of some kind, and Shiva represents Satan traveling through the portal to destroy the church, subdue God, and take over the world. Obviously, that'll never happen, but that's Satan's plan. So there are those who believe that CERN and the LHC will be instrumental in this process and will play a big role in end times prophecy. Let's talk about their logo. So CERN has a logo. If you've seen it, it kind of looks like circles with some branching parts coming out, and just as with the statue of Shiva, the logo of CERN has caused an equal amount of controversy. If you turn it upside down, if you look at it just right, the CERN logo kind of resembles three sixes, which some claim is a clear sign of the biblical mark of the beast from Revelation. This also resembles a hand gesture that is thought to signify the three sixes of the mark of the beast. Just looks like that, you know. Now people are going to screenshot that and saying, "Look, Josh is throwing up satanic hand symbols." Anyway, but I was just doing that to show you what the hand symbol is, so you know what it looks like. And when you look at the CERN logo upside down, it looks a little, kind of, sort of like that. Some people have made the claim, sort of. So most times that symbol that I just showed is shown over an individual's right eye, signifying the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati and Freemasonry. And there are some who interpret the CERN acronym in the middle of the three sixes as representing that eye. Because when you look at the logo, you see CERN, and then you see those three things. Now, most people outside of a conspiratorial research often deduce CERN's logo as representing nothing else but the design of synchrotron particle accelerators. And they do look like that. It's even said that this was to be the original design for the logo, but it looked too much like a black hole, so they changed it a little bit. So as it stands now, you know, opinions are split as to whether we have a massive coincidence or a massive conspiracy. Personally, I don't put a whole lot of importance or power in symbols like that. You know, I know in witchcraft and occultism they're all into symbols and stuff, but it's just like a minute ago. I had no problem showing you guys that symbol because I don't really believe there's any. You know, I don't believe that me doing that is going to invite a bunch of demons into the house or anything. I don't think the symbol itself really has any power. It's more about like what it represents. It's like if they changed that logo, does that mean that they're giving up some of their dark spiritual influence if they have any? No, probably not. I think probably the logo is just synchrotron particle accelerators, because if you look at pictures of those online, that is exactly what they look like. So that makes total sense to me. The statue is weird. I will say that. The statue is weird. But again, it's a symbol. It's just you know, it represents bad things, but the thing itself doesn't really hold any power. For example, if you were to knock down the statue, is that going to change anything? If CERN does have dark intentions, and I'm saying if, I'm not saying that they definitely do or definitely don't, but if they do, would taking that statue out, would destroying it, would that affect anything that they're actually doing? Would that take away some of their dark power? No, probably not. Because if they have any kind of dark influence, if they are occultists and things like that, the symbols in the statues, it's really just more of a showing off thing, kind of. I think of it more like that. It's just like with us, you know. I mean, you know, there's obviously power in the cross. Like, we know that there's power in the cross. But if I hold two sticks together in the form of a cross because somebody's breaking into my house, is that going to stop them? No. If they want to break in, they're going to break in. And, you know, maybe I can use the two sticks to defend myself, but spiritually speaking, that's probably not going to do anything. That doesn't mean that there's not power in the cross. It's just in that context, what's that really going to do? Now, obviously, God can perform miracles. He can do anything he wants. He could work through that to stop the break-in, but chances are that's not going to do much. Because that's not the purpose. When we say that there's power in the cross, we're talking about the salvation power of Jesus' death on the cross. It's a symbol that points us to something else. Well, Satan doesn't have any original ideas of his own, so he steals from God and twists it. So Satan has his symbols too. And I don't think that they're something that we Christians should fear And I wouldn't say that we shouldn't take them seriously, but I don't think that we need to actually fear them. But I think it's good to understand what are they saying by putting these symbols up. Like, what's the history? Like, I think the statue there was pretty deliberate. The logo, I'm not as sold on that one. I don't know. I think the statue was deliberate in some way, at least from who gifted it to CERN. CERN obviously was going to accept the gift because that would have looked bad if they didn't. But I think that there is symbolism there that is worth looking at, and all the history of the area surrounding where CERN decided to place the LHC. I think that's all important. Okay. All that being said, we do have a lot more to talk about, but we're going to do that in the members only section. So if you haven't had a chance yet, head on over to dailyrenegade.com and get a membership today. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year. And I would suggest getting the $100 a year because it's a lot cheaper in the long run. Essentially, you get 2 months for free doing it that way. And if you're viewing on dailyrenegade.com right now, just hang on the line. We'll get back to our talk here. And if you're not and you want to view the rest of this video, we got more to get into. We're going to get into some of CERN's actual history. We're going to talk about the Book of Daniel, and if it's possible that CERN might fulfill the prophecy of the toes of the statue. We're gonna look into that. So we got some really interesting things that we're going to look at. We're going to look at CERN's connection to the internet and if there's a connection to the mark of the beast there. So you want to get the rest of this video. And the only way to do that is to go to dailyrenegade.com and get a membership today. So once more, if you're viewing this already at the website at dailyrenegade.com, just hang on the line and we'll get back to it. Everyone else viewing for free on YouTube or elsewhere, thank you so much. Please check out the links in the description below. Make sure you subscribe and click that bell for notifications. And until next time, take care and God bless.